This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Spring training 2017 from Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. This afternoon, it's the Miami Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals. Just a light rain right now here at the ballpark. We will have a slight delay at the start. There's a look at Adam Wainwright. This is where you know, Al Rabosky and I'm Dan McLaughlin, that baseball will be played and played pretty soon because both starters getting loose at normal time.
And of course, with spring training, with so many young players here, you just have a crowded bullpen. You have a dugout that's hard to find space. But boy, with the WBC, gives a lot of opportunities to some younger players to shine.
Yeah, both sides have a number of players that have moved on to the WBC. The Cardinals could have 9, maybe 10 before it's all said and done. And for St. Louis, it'll be Adam Wainwright getting the start here this afternoon, and he feels that he's really figured out some things with his grip on his curveball.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, a little disappointed in his first start in spring, gave up a couple home runs, but went home and checked out some video and went back, I think it was 2012, when he was doing some work with Al Leiter, and Major League Baseball was doing some video, and he was showing his curveball grip back then. Realized it's a little bit different. Felt like he was played catch with his wife Jenny in the condo and everything, showing him the new grip, and he really feels like he's got a new toy.
So there it is on the left. That's part of the video that you just alluded to. And now on the right, he believes he's gotten underneath a little bit of it, but he just started flipping the ball to his wife. And when you say playing catch, don't worry, he wasn't throwing 90-mile-an-hour sinkers. It was just flipping the ball out of the hand and trying to get a feel for that breaking ball.
Yeah, you kind of look at the two screens right here, and you kind of see that, you know, the one on the right, he's really coming off the side of the curveball, and you get that little flat frisbee. So with the other one where you're right on top of it and pull it down, and then you have that vintage 12-6 curveball.
Won't be long. We will have baseball coming up. Don Mattingly has his lineup set. Tom Kohler, the right-hander, one of his guys in his main 5 of his rotation, gets the call this afternoon. Baseball, it will happen, coming up. falling right now at the ballpark. It's supposed to clear up, and so our delay of this game might be 2 minutes or so, as Adam Wainwright will finish up his warm-up tosses. Really took him out of his rhythm, because he finished warming up down in the bullpen, comes out to the mound, gets a baseball, takes 2 or 3 warm-up tosses. We stop for the anthem, then the ceremonial first pitch, and now he is just finishing up, getting ready for this game.
And if you remember, when he left the dugout to go to the mound, it really was raining harder at that point than any other point. So, you know, he's a veteran. He can make those adjustments, but he is dying to see his new curveball and see that grip and put it into effect against a very exciting player, D. Gordon.
He'll lead it off. The lineup presented by Chevrolet, followed by JT Realmuto, then Derek Dietrich, Marcelo Zuna, Justin Bour, Ichiro Suzuki, Tomas Telis, Matt Den Decker, and Miguel Rojas. We did not see D. Gordon earlier in spring. He was nursing a leg issue, and he takes a pitch high. They've just turned on the lights here at Roger Dean Stadium. And there's a strike.
We talked about Wainwright's curveball, but really one of the things that he needs to do is have that fastball velocity up a tick or 2 from last year to make that curveball that much more effective.
Here's a 1-1. And it's slapped fouling out of play. D. Gordon trying to have a bounce-back season. The year before, 2015, he won the batting title, hit .333, dropped to .268, and he also served 80 games for violating the PED violation policy in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, when you look at his frame, you kind of wonder why he was taking PEDs, and then you kind of have to question, was he taking them earlier when he won that batting championship? Because, as you said, when he came back from the 80 games, he didn't hit like he did the year before.
Here is a 2-2 pitch to D. Gordon. And he struck him out in on his hands.
Good start for Wainwright. It's one thing you want to do is you want to be able to throw that fastball, be able to spot it. I think that's the one thing that I look at a difference in eras past, where everybody had fastball command and very few have it today.
So 1 out and nobody on for JT Realmuto. Very athletic catcher. He'll be the everyday backstop for Miami. Originally drafted as he played the infield in high school, was a terrific shortstop. Miami moved him to catcher, and he's found a home there. His backup this season will be A.J. Ellis. There's that curveball that drops in and misses inside. 1 ball and 1 strike.
What you find a little bit interesting, that A.J. Ellis was supposed to be on the American squad, a backup.
And he had to withdraw because of a hamstring issue. There's the curveball again. It hung a little bit. And a base hit out to left. Realmuto can run on his way to second. And he is out at second. Tremendous throw, Jose Martinez, who's done everything right so far in this camp.
And if you really look at Jose Martinez, you know, you think about the offense, but he's had a history of having a great throwing arm. He gets over, cuts the ball off, get it back into the infield as quick as possible. Right there for a quick tag by Wong. Everything to perfection. That's a nice start. Give up base hit, but you have your defense help you out. Hopefully we can say that a lot this year with the Cardinal defense.
And Martinez already with 7 RBIs and 3 home runs to pace the Cardinals offensively as well. Here's Derek Dietrich at the plate. He's hitting .167, no home runs, and 1 RBI this spring. In time is called. It's a major league umpiring staff. Lance Barksdale is behind the plate. Gary Cederstrom at first. C.B. Buckner at second. Greg Gibson is at third. A lot of times you'll see the minor league umpires get a chance to work some big league games in spring training.
And of course, we're going to have some new names from umpires, as a couple guys did retire.
1 ball and 1 strike. Look at the Cardinals defense. Martinez, Fowler, and Piscotty in the outfield. Peralta, Garcia on the left side of the infield, Wong and Adams on the right side, and Carson Kelly is behind the plate. Yadier Molina now with Team Puerto Rico. Marlins last year 79 and 82, the high water mark, 9 games above 500, and it turned into 3 below with a sub 500 second half. They went 32 and 41 as that breaking ball just missed.
And of course, late in the season, you had the death of their ace, Jose Fernandez. They were 10 games under 500 when he did not start. And really tough. You can't replace him.
Here's a 3-2. Fastball driven out to left center field. That's well hit. Fowler will field it off the wall on one hop. And it's a 2-out double for Derek Dietrich. It brings in Marcell Ozuna. Doesn't get the call on the pitch before, has to deliver a strike, and Dietrich was waiting for it.
And, you know, Dan, that is one of the things that, you know, Yadier Molina is so good at, is using secondary pitches, off-speed pitches, when it's in a hitter's count. And, you know, a hitter's looking for a fastball. That's when Yadi is so good at throwing the changeup or a cutter, secondary pitches, where when you're forced to throw the fastball, you know, these guys are pretty good.
Yep. So here's an all-star from a year ago, Marcell Ozuna. And he looks at a strike. Ozuna hit 266. He popped 23 home runs. As a matter of fact, every outfielder for the Marlins, their regulars, hit 20 or more home runs as he made his first all-star team. The outfield is straight away and deep. And quickly, there's 2 strikes.
And you really look at the Marlins, you know, offensively, they've got a lot of firepower. They play in that big ballpark, so they don't hit the home runs that they would at normal somebody else's park. But they can play some baseball. Good offensive players. But then you talk about their starting staff is probably a little weak, and the bullpen, you know, is questionable.
0-2 pitch, the curveball. Well, you look at their infield with Prado, Echeverria, D. Gordon, Bohr. I mean, very good defensively. Outfield, Stanton, the cannon in right field. Ozuna, very good defensively in center. Yelich can hold his own in center and in left. But as you mentioned, it'll be their starting staff that carries them one way or another. Jammed him just a bit, and it's handled by Peralta. So the Marlins strand a runner, and the Cardinals coming up in the home half of the first. Dexter Fowler leads it off when we come back. Big number 50, a mainstay in St. Louis. lineup, Dexter Fowler, the switch hitter, followed by Colton Wong and Johnny Peralta. Steven Piscotty will bat cleanup. Then Adams, Jerko, Martinez, Garcia, and Kelly for St. Louis. Well, we know Donnie Baseball, one of the greats in Yankees history. His pitcher today, Tom Kohler, grew up in New York. His favorite player, you guessed it, Don Mattingly. And he has been a mainstay, as we talked about how Wainwright has been that in St. Louis. Kohler has done that quietly, a mainstay in the rotation for Miami.
Yeah, we talked about their rotation a little bit lacking, especially after the tragic death of Jose Fernandez. But they picked up Edison Volquez, who's pitching for the Dominican, and also Jeff Locke, remember the lefty from Pirates.
And Fowler on the first pitch, strokes a single into right field.
Danny, I was looking at Fowler last year. He hit .390 with 7 home runs and a .483 on-base percentage, leading off games.
That's a difference maker.
It really is. And the Cardinals, they believe you have Fowler, who had an on-base percentage last year of .393. But then you had Diaz and then Carpenter, those three in the order. All three of those were in the top 5 of the National League on-base percentages. So they're going to get on for the thumpers in the middle of the order. Hopefully will score a lot of runs.
There's Colton Wong, who was spectacular in the game yesterday across the state, both with the glove and at the plate. Cardinals last year only 35 steals. Fowler himself had 13 last year, so we'll see if he wants to do some running here in the first inning.
They almost had 35 steals. They had 20+ steals in spring training last year, and then had the lowest total in the National League during the regular season.
28 in spring training. So in 1 month they had 28, and then just the 35 in regular season play. Here's a 1-0 pitch to Wong instead of check on Fowler.
And Dan, that's one of the emphasis of spring. Mike Matheny still wants them to be very aggressive, you know, take advantage, try and find out what your limitations are. But base running, stealing bases, and just going first to third, you know, just was a real problem for the Cardinals a year ago, and obviously they've worked hard on it this spring.
Well, he said, I want our team to be aggressive, but we have to be smart. I don't want to be seeing guys just run crazy and running into outs, but I do want to see a more aggressive play. And Fowler has changed a lot, not just at the top of the lineup, but the clubhouse. And if you're coming down here, you'll notice the music during batting practice on the backfields, which was loud today. So much so that Mike Matheny said enjoy the concert. It's popped up. Fowler was running into shallow left, and the catch is made, and Dexter back to the bag at first. The Marlins defensively. It is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. It's called Around the Horn. Ozuna in left, Dendecker in center. Ichiro is in right. Dietrich, Rojas, Gordon, and Boral on the infield. And Tomas Telis is behind the plate. Ichiro Suzuki, they said for the first time ever, was in the trainer's room at the beginning of spring training. First time ever in his pro career. He had a slight collision in workouts. Nothing serious, but they wanted to make sure he was all right.
This is his 17th year playing in the United States.
3,000+ hits now to his credit.
Yeah, he did go on the disabled list one time, but that was bleeding ulcers. And the reason why he went into the training room this year is he had a collision with another outfielder and sustained a leg injury. But I think he'll be in shape.
Now will be. He is.
I was going to say, it looked like you try and find an ounce of fat on him.
It's funny, too. You come down here, and this is Johnny Peralta at the plate, and you look across the complex, which is shared with the Marlins, and there is a private trainer's room just for Ichiro that he has. It's set up in the backfields, and it's got everything that he wants, from the nutrition aspects of what he eats to all the workout equipment that he wants to use specifically for himself.
43 now?
That's correct. Here's a 1-1. Peralta with a fly ball out to left. Wind is blowing in today, and the catch is made by Ozuna. Fowler draws a throw and back to the bag at first, and there's 2 down.
little teaching right there. You see it's just a routine fly ball, but nothing's routine with the wind that we've experienced the last few days. But definitely got behind the ball, getting his momentum coming in, and just anticipate that it's going to be that Fowler is going to tag up and go to second base. A lot of times just by doing that will stop a runner from trying to advance.
There's Stephen Piscotty. Could be the best spot in the lineup, batting cleanup, but because of what you talked about with 3 guys that get on base at a high clip, he could have a lot of opportunities to drive in runs this year.
And he proved to be a very good clutch hitter a year ago, driving in runners in scoring position.
So 2 outs and a runner at first, and Piscotty taps it foul. So hitting just 133, and Cardinals GM John Mozeliak was asked the other day if he's concerned at all with the slow start of Piscotty, and he said, for some young players I would be, but he's different. A very bright guy, knows what he needs to do to get ready, so we're not overly concerned at all. And Fowler back in safely at first base.
Because of the World Baseball Classic, you know, spring training's at least a week longer this year, and so everybody's kind of had that leeway to kind of get to don't feel the pressure of trying to, you know, win job right now.
2 strikes on Piscotty.
He did drive the ball in yesterday's ball game for a double, and so, you know, I'm sure he's working on a few things, trying to do a few things, but as you said, very intelligent. We know that, the Stanford graduate, but you know, his baseball instincts are up there also.
Well, the Cardinals in RBIs and runs scored a year ago. Only 25 as he hit 273. No balls, 2 strikes on Stephen Piscotty. Fowler is running. Pitch is low. Throw down to second. Save. And Fowler has a stolen base and puts himself in scoring position. And this is where Piscotty separated himself a year ago. Fairly close play at second base, but Stephen was really clutch. He had 37 2-out RBIs, and that was most on the Cardinals, 6th most in the National League. We'll see if he can't come through here.
D. Gordon did something there that you like to see. He made sure he caught the ball before applying the tag. Sometimes they try to apply the tag before they catch it, and they don't catch the ball.
You know, in the hands of Piscotty, and it's fouled back. Pitching of the Marlins a year ago with Jose Fernandez gave up the 3rd most walks, surrendered the fewest home runs in all of baseball. The relief corps, though, had 29 blown saves, and that was most in club history. And here's a 1-2 in the dirt, kept in front by Talis.
That 29 blown saves was one off of the Giants. Had 30 to lead the National League. That's a category you don't want to lead in.
Well, you just think about if you are able to close out even a 1/3 of those, you're putting yourself in a position for a wild card.
And of course, in the trade deadline, they made a trade for Melanson, tried to re-sign
Fernando Rodney.
And Washington had Melanson.
That's right.
And
here's a grounder that's hit to 3rd, and it's handled by Derek Dietrich. Bottom line is the bullpen did not hold up the tail end of last season for Miami. Cardinals strand a runner, and there's no score after 1.
Would you be into doing
Rockies Toyota keys to the game.
Well, we talked about it, the importance of Wainwright finding that curveball grip again and having success with it. And to me, Johnny Peralta is a real key. Peralta, the final year of his contract, his thumb is healthy now. Think about how well that Molina hit in the second half. That's where Peralta is now. And Dan, in my mind, Peralta's going to be your everyday third baseman. But, you know, injuries are always a part of the game.
Justin Bour hits it out of play.
I think it's important. And, you know, and think about where Johnny is stationed right now with a shift on with a left-handed hitter. Is I think he should take some games at shortstop, because he's our second best shortstop, you know, to Diaz, and then it's Peralta.
Well, you got Greg Garcia too. The pitch taken inside, and Garcia's really vastly improved defensively at short over the last couple of years.
That's true. And then Jerko, the super sub, can play all over the diamond, but
fights it off, and a base hit for Justin Bour. So the third hit for the Marlins as Bour will stop at first base, and the leadoff man is aboard.
Justin Bour just has a lot of power, but he does all of his damage against right-handed pitching. And they have a very versatile Dietrich, can play all over the diamond, so it might be a platoon at first base. I know they'd like to have Bour play every day.
And the question is, with him, can he hit left-handed pitching?
He never has.
So they've talked about Dietrich and Miguel Rojas, JT Realmuto being over there. And here is Ichiro, and a fastball is taken high.
Yeah, Realmuto, their everyday catcher, it gives him an opportunity to kind of rest his legs and keep those legs fresh. And that will catch there, and Realmuto over at first.
And speaking of versatility, Ichiro can play all three outfield spots. Must be something about when he faces the Cardinals, but he had combined last year in spring training and in regular season play 4 outfield assists against the Cardinals.
Well, remember, we were trying to take advantage, and you're trying to run, but there's certain guys you learn don't run against.
The 2-0 pitch. Yanked down the right field line and out of play.
Dan, I guess it was 17 years ago, right before the season opened, we opened up at Safeco Field an exhibition game against the Mariners in Ichiro's very first year in the United States. And Piniella was telling us all about it. He goes, I don't know what I've got here. Well, baseball sure found out.
2-1 pitch. Fouled back, and it's 2-2. Adam Wainwright has talked about shoelaces being an occupational hazard, so no shoelaces on his spikes. He's gone with the Velcro. Make sure that the spike does not tangle up with the shoelace. So he's been using those types of spikes here in spring training. The 2-2 pitch to Ichiro. Could be 2. Garcia is there, steps on the bag. It's a double play.
Taylor may catch the ball, make a step to the bag, and then an easy throw over to first base.
Brings in Tomas Telis. So no shoelaces now for Wainwright. Telis originally signed as a shortstop by Texas. Here's a big curveball. Then moved to catcher by the Rangers. He's seen big league action back in the 2014 season while with the Rangers.
He's a switch hitter, hit .310 last year at AAA.
One and one the count. Big gap in right center. Cardinals will see Washington and Houston next couple of days, in both those games right here on Fox Sports Midwest. Cutter and a strike. Evens it up at 2-2. Slapped foul. Number of Cardinals with the respective teams at the WBC. And for Don Mattingly's club, Martin Prado is gone. Christian Yelich, Stanton, Edinson Volquez.
How about Team Israel?
Up 2-0. Hit to third on a hop. No, it's a catch. That call made by Greg Gibson. So after a leadoff single, a double play, and a line out, Matt Adams leads it off when we come back. Yeah, I didn't think that Peralta caught that on a fly. I thought it did hit the ground. Regardless, though, as a first baseman, you better be ready for that throw.
Yeah, don't think you're an umpire. When you go out there and you got a play such as this, you go right to the first base bag thinking that you're going to get a throw from the third baseman. Peralta was in position and he looked right at the umpire, but he was ready to throw to third base and didn't when he saw Greg Gibson gave him the call that he caught it in the air. He knew he caught it in the air, but you have to make sure the umpire agrees.
So here is Matt Adams to lead off the bottom of the second. Hits it sharply past the diving shortstop Rojas, and a base hit into left center.
I think both of us would really be intrigued to see what Matt Adams could do with 600 bats a year. Obviously, the weight loss, 30 pounds, the Pilates. You know, he feels like he's so much stronger and more athletic.
And Al, he has done. Look at his hands here. So
yep,
when we first got here, he was holding his hands really low, almost to the birds on the bat, on the chest. And I talked to him yesterday about that. I said, what's going on here? Because now it doesn't look the same. And he said it's not. He's actually brought him back up. Not to the point of where they were a year ago, which is on the left. So he said he's dropped him down ever so slightly. But he said, right now, I feel like I'm getting to the ball as quick as I have in years. And so the hands aren't quite as high, not quite as low as we first saw, but right in the middle.
When I looked at those two frames, I saw what he's doing now is he looks like he's like the ready to swing. Last year, he has the hands held higher there on the left. He's got to drop them to come into starting his swing. So, you know, he's ready to pull the trigger on the right.
As he told me, he said, I got a little loopy with the hands so high, and by having him drop down just ever so slightly, I'm getting to the ball even quicker.
That's exactly right. You know, like I said, where they are, you're going right to the ball.
And much has been made of a trimmed down Matt Adams, dropped about 30 pounds, and he's in good shape.
You know, sometimes when you lose that much weight, it takes you a while to get comfortable. But he feels because of doing the Pilates that he does have all this strength.
Here's Jed Jerko, looks at a strike.
What a year he had last year.
Well, you have 30 home runs, and no one's really talking about him being a regular.
And how about the fact that how well he did the second half? 23 home runs.
Most home runs of anybody in the second half. He also has come in better condition. Now, he is a father of twins. And he was telling me that his wife now is expecting their third child. So congratulations to the Jerkos.
And you mentioned the fact that he led the club with his 30 home runs, but doesn't have a set position. Well, he does in a sense. It's all around the infield. And he hit home runs at every infield position last year.
Here's a 2-2. And a swing and a miss, and Kohler picks up his first strikeout of the afternoon. One of the stories of this camp is Jose Martinez. As you get a look at the pitch with Jerko in the first strikeout, Martinez 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. He's hitting .389. And I asked Mike Matheny about Matt Carpenter and when he could be playing next, and it looks like at least a week away. Martinez can play a little first base, so you're looking for at-bats for him somewhere. He can do that. Also can play the outfield.
He won the batting championship in 2015 while playing with Omaha, over .380. He's from Venezuela. Was a big-time prospect earlier in his early 20s, and then had a very serious knee injury. It cost him nearly parts of 3 years.
Here's a 1-0 pitch to Martinez. Instead, a check on Adams, who's not going anywhere at first base. Starting to see the crowds get a little bit bigger as we move along in spring training. Cardinals travel so well. So many fans make their way to Florida, and spring breaks start throughout St. Louis next week and the following weeks after that. So a lot of families make their way south to Jupiter.
Yeah, he had that knee injury in 2008, and in 2010 he became the first player to return to professional baseball after having a meniscus transplant.
Here's a 2-0. 2 balls and 1 strike.
And remember last year when he got called up for the first time playing with St. Louis, he was a very good pinch hitter, and particularly against left-handed pitching. And I remember 2 exceptional bats, the best of bats I ever saw any Cardinal hitter at any time against Chapman.
What it tells you is that Martinez has a very quick bat, and that's
Correct.
been noted by the coaching staff here this spring and again at the end of last season when they got an extended look at him.
And he's a big guy, didn't hit for a lot of power when he was hitting for a high average, but they've got him kind of change his stroke a little bit, and he's starting to elevate the ball, and it's paying off for those home runs this spring.
Looks at a pitch inside.
You got to pull for a kid like this. And he's not really a kid. He's 28. July 25th, he'll turn 29. But like I said, he won the Pacific Coast League batting championship with a .384 average in 2015 and did not get called up to the Royals.
The year that they won the World Championship. And he looks at a pitch high, and it's got to be high because he's 6'7". First walk by Kohler.
He also had a real mature answer where I said, well, you had to be frustrated not getting called up when you won the batting championship at AAA. And he goes, well, they were fighting, for a division title and going on. And he goes, they had a chance to pick up the veteran player. And so I understood. I was disappointed, but I understood. I don't think many others would have understood.
There's Greg Garcia. Greg getting .214, couple of RBIs this spring. He was one of the Cardinals' top pinch hitters a year ago as he went up and down from the minor leagues. And Garcia strokes it into right center field. Adams chugging on in. He'll score. And the Cardinals strike first and an RBI by Greg Garcia.
Danny, you touched on it. Greg Garcia was such a good pinch hitter. and had a special knack pinch hitting that he would reach base, either get hit by a pitch or walk. And there he gets the line drive over D. Gordon's head and drives in the first run of the game.
See Adams from that vantage point of where he's at, had a pretty decent look at it and never hesitated to see whether or not that D. Gordon would make that catch. Here's Carson Kelly. Carson rated as the top catching prospect in all of Major League Baseball. He's hitting .375. No home runs. He's driven in 4. The Cardinals have re-signed Eric Fryer to be the backup, more than likely with the Major League club, and let Carson continue to develop.
Yeah, since Carson is only the second, there's only 2 catchers on the 40-man roster. So everybody visiting executives or everybody says, well, you know, you aren't going to keep Carson Kelly, are you? And the answer is no. This kid is too valuable. He's too young. He's got to play every day. He's only had a half year at AAA. He's the heir apparent to Molina, but Fryer is an excellent backup, and that Kelly developed.
1-0 is pulled foul. It was Gary LaRocque that told Carson Kelly that he was making the transition from third base to catcher. And he said, you know, you tell a young guy that this is for their benefit and the club's, clearly, but some guys accept it well, others do not. He said Carson Kelly was fine with it, all smiles. And Gary said, could he have made it to the big leagues as a third baseman? He said, probably, but this is his best road.
Yeah, that was an odd draft class where Piscotty, Wisdom, and Kelly were all third basemen. Carson was a high school pick, so they said, you're going to be a catcher. Piscotty said, you're going to be a right fielder, and Wisdom still the catcher. He's had a pretty good week, where home run the other day, or I guess last Saturday, where he tied the ball game.
It's slowly hit to second. Gordon shuffle to short, and it's a double play. 4-6-3. Gordon, Rojas to board. The Cardinals, though, strike first. RBI base hit by Garcia. 1-0 St. Louis.
Come into state.
Baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you in part by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by the Chevy Silverado, the new face of strong. Chevrolet. Find new roads at your local Mid-America Chevy dealer. Craig Garcia, his RBI base hit, and it's 1-0 Cardinals. Adam Wainwright at 33 pitches. He'll be around 50-55 today. The pitch taken inside by Matt Den Decker, the former Met. Mike Matheny also telling me that with a guy like Wainwright, if he wants to go back out for another inning, even if he's around 50, 55 pitches, they'll allow him to do that. Some of the others, they do not. They take that decision out of their hands.
You get somebody like Wainwright, he almost kind of maps out his own spring training plan.
1-2.
He knows what he needs to do to get his body in shape. Good change up there.
Derek Lilliquist on the right, back again this season for the Cardinals. Mike Matheny on the left.
Lily's done a very good job.
2-2 the count. Den Decker was mentioned by manager of the Marlins, Don Mattingly, before the game as one of the players that will see significant bump in playing time with his guys gone to the WBC. You mentioned Brandon Barnes. We'll see him today. Tyler Moore, another one. There's another changeup in the dirt. And the count runs full. Wainwright physically a little bit bigger coming into this spring. We talked about being healthy in the offseason and a full workout, and he strikes out Matt Den Decker for his second strikeout of the afternoon.
Good to see that. You know, he elevates the ball late in the count. Always, everybody talks about how, you know, you don't want to throw the ball up. But you do if you've been concentrating down in the strike zone and then late in the count to elevate it above the strike zone and get somebody to change their eye level.
First pitch is popped up by Miguel Rojas into shallow center. And it's Garcia, the shortstop, who takes it. There's two away. Well, Don Mattingly, it's been talked about just about every day when outside media, those that don't follow the Marlins every day, come to their camp and they're asked about, well, what do you do with the loss of Jose Fernandez and how has your team responded? And one of the most emotional moments of last season, not just with Miami, but really in all of baseball, was D. Gordon hit a home run off of Bartolo Colon. As he shows bunt, looks a strike. He took the first pitch in the first game back after the death of Fernandez from the right side of the plate, then went to his natural side and hit his only home run of the year.
And not only was it his only home run, but it was an upper deck shot.
Here's a 1-1. Pulled foul. Talking about that Miami defense, at one point their infield went 28 games consecutive without committing an error. Longest streak in the modern era. All told, they wound up with combined just 43 errors on the infield. The curveball is slowly hit to first. Adams is there, steps on the bag, and a 1-2-3 third for Adam Wainwright. Dexter Fowler leads it off, and then followed by this man, Colton Wong. The Cardinals here in the bottom of the third, 1-0 St. Louis. Spring training baseball on Fox Sports Midwest. Al Raboski alongside. I'm Dan McLaughlin, and this is Dexter Fowler against Tom Kohler to start the third. Dexter had the chance to meet and shake hands with the great Bob Gibson, who arrived in camp today with the Cardinals. Great to see Gibby down here.
Gibby, 81. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
81. He looks great.
And of course, we always think about our manager, Red Shandy's 94. Hopefully we'll see Red down here, but understand that Jackie Brock is a little under the weather. We hope speedy recovery there.
1-0 pitch drops in for his strike.
And we got my first minor league manager, Joe Cunningham, wish him good health. And you know, Doc Savage, Ted Savage, has had some issues lately. Want him to get well soon.
Here's a 1-1. Fowler chops it foul. He singled, and it was into right, stole a base, and then left stranded. Mike Matheny was telling us that he has implored his players to go up to Bob Gibson and try not to be intimidated, but he wants to help. He watches the games. He's watching, in particular, the pitchers. If you have a question, go to Bob Gibson and ask him. Fowler goes down to get it and strokes his second base hit of the afternoon.
Yeah, there you see Gibby right there. He's going to be in uniform tomorrow and address the team. And I know when Lou and Gibby would come back here, there was a few years ago where they just sit around and nobody would talk to them. They were players were intimidated, and that's why Mike has said, you know, you'll be surprised, Bob. You know, they're listening. They may be standing 3 or 4 feet away from you, you know, trying to overhear a conversation, but after you have left, they're talking about what you said. And Bob, it was interesting to me because, you know, he was the biggest influence in my career. And also, you know, to be playing with a guy that you kind of almost say that was your idol. But if you ask these guys, these Hall of Famers, these great players, you've got to go up there and ask them, and they'll open up and tell you all kinds of things, but they're not going to go up to you.
The pitch inside, 1 ball, 1 strike on Colton Long. Colton saying the other day, as you get another look at Bob Gibson, that this is a fresh start. So I'm coming in with a clean slate, looking forward to having a good year. And he's made some dazzling plays down here defensively,
including a double play he started yesterday.
1-1 pitch. Well documented the Cardinals' issues defensively a year ago. If you play Colton Wong every day, some of those issues may be shored up.
Well, I think it's also, you know, what Mike Matheny's thinking, okay, you play Carpenter every day at first base instead of all over the place. You know, Diaz, after that first month, really settled down and played good defensively. Peralta's in better shape.
Wong, little floater out to shallow left, and the catch is made. Fowler has to hurry up and get back to the bag at first. He does. And a basket catch by Ozuna in left for out number 1.
I was thinking, Danny, when you were talking about how the Marlins had, what, 28 straight games without an error in the infield? Cardinals wouldn't have been 17.5 games behind the Cubs if they would have played that type of defense.
Well, you're probably in postseason play because you finished one game back of the Giants
obviously of that.
in the wild card. Yeah. Game here or there, and all of a sudden you're talking postseason baseball again.
And I think Mike Leake's going to be so much better off this year.
1 out, runner at first. I like what Mike said, though, the other day when asked about the Cardinals defense, and at times it was poor behind him. And we know he's not a strikeout pitcher. He throws a lot of strikes, so the ball's going to be put in play. And he said, you know, you can look at that in the defense at times. Yeah, was it great behind me? No, but I've got to be better myself. You know, I can't worry about those kind of things, and ultimately it's on me. As Peralta pulls it fair inside the third base line, past the diving Dietrich. Fowler on his way to third. They'll wave him in. Fowler will score. And Peralta on his way to third base as the ball finally gets back in the infield, and it's 2-0 St. Louis.
Beyond our sight lines, but Ozuna had to have trouble with that ball down in the left field corner. And as you said, it took a long time for him to get the ball out. Ball just inside the third base bag. Let's see. So Fowler picked up. There you see the long. He had to go right there. He comes home easily, and Peralta ends up with the triple.
Infield is drawn in for Piscotty. 1-out runner at third. 2-0 St. Louis. Steven grounded out to third, his first time up. And he's hit by the pitch. So Piscotty is aboard. Runners at first and third. And it brings in Adams, who scored the first run of our ball game and also singled to center back in the second inning.
A piece of hitting for Matt. They had the shift on and hit it through the vacated shortstop area.
It's a big year for Adams. He's now 28. Last year, 16 home runs. Was one of the best pinch hitters in all of baseball. That ball scoots away. Piscotty is running. Throw to second base. Ball gets away, and a run will score. That's Peralta.
Throw hit shortstop in the head.
That's Rojas, who is down for Miami. Run does score, and that makes it a 3-0 St. Louis lead. It almost looked like one of those plays where Piscotty was trying to get into the rundown to score. The runner from third, Peralta, something that you'll see occasionally in spring training. But right now, our thoughts are with the young man at second base, Rojas, who clearly is shooken up.
It looked like a low throw, and the bounce came up and hit him in what I believe is the head, and that looks like what they're concerned about. And with Dietrich and Rojas, they got two middle guys that can play all over the field. Side of the head, run around the ear.
Cardinals spring training baseball is always live with the MLB.com at bat mobile app. You can stay connected all spring with radio broadcasts, video highlights, stats, news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat today. It's your #1 app for live baseball. And that'll be it, it looks like, for Rojas. As he was tangled up a bit with Piscotty on that play.
Short hop, and then it took a high bounce on him and never got a glove on it at all.
One of the big series early on that we have coming up is with the Chicago Cubs. The Cardinals want to make sure you know there are $16 tickets available for that series. They'll go on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m. Good seats for that series for $16 thanks to McDonald's. 10 a.m. at Cardinals.com. We'll tell you more about that as we move along in our telecast.
JT Riddle is taking over at shortstop for Rojas.
First pitch was a ball to Adams. Runner at second is Piscotty. Jed Jerko on deck. And that's ball 2. Adams with a base hit his first time up. And he gets a strike to make it 2-1. 3-0 Cardinals. Adams scored the first run of our ball game back in the second. Cardinals have added 2 more. So part of that McDonald's Ticket Fest with the Cubs, $11 tickets, not just 16 but $11 tickets. So very, very good value coming up at 10 a.m. tomorrow at Cardinals.com.
I got a bag of peanuts right here to throw you. Okay, little pepper.
Small number of $16 tickets remain, but those $11 tickets can be yours. That's it out of play. 3-2 the count.
Another excellent promotional schedule. Cardinals really now, those promotional items are, you know, they're great collector items.
Number jerseys and the ring packs, bobbleheads, a Mike Shannon alarm clock. Get up, baby. Here's a 3-2 pitch to Adams. Curveball misses in, so it's a walk as Kohler stares back into the home plate umpire.
Second walk by Kohler.
Here's Jed Jerko. Jerko struck out back in the second inning. Left-hander starts to throw in the pen for the Marlins. 1 out, 2 on. There's ball 1. Jonathan Broxton has been throwing in the Cardinals pen. Spring training, sometimes you'll see those pitchers and extra men running in the outfield. You'll see baseballs that get away from the bullpen. That's why we just had that stoppage in play. One and 1 the count. Kohler has made at least 30 starts in 3 consecutive years, so he's been pretty reliable every 5th day for Don Mattingly's club.
Didn't sound like much, but that's you know, that's a very valuable commodity when you could take the ball every 5th day.
Innings. Popped up on the infield. Now in foul territory. Wynn takes that over to Bohr, who holds on and makes the play. Runner tags, throw to third is high, and a heads-up play there by Stephen Piscotty to tag up.
Stephen probably saw where he had that little juggle and decided that he'd take the risk. And good rewards. Catcher coming over, but you see Bohr makes it, then he jobbles and boxes. Scotty goes halfway and just takes off. And watching all the way, and then the high throw. They're going to bring in their outstanding left-hander out of their bullpen, Hunter.
So we'll step aside. Cardinals with a lead of 3-0. Chevy called to the pen. Hunter Cervenka, a left-hander. He was with Atlanta a year ago, then traded over to Miami. It's runners at first and third. Piscotty a runner at third base. Adams is at first. And the batter will be Jose Martinez. He's a lefty specialist. Had spent time with the Sugarland Skeeters of the Atlantic League. Changed his motion, became a lefty specialist, and found himself back in the big leagues. Originally 27th round pick by Boston in 2008. In 2012, traded to the Cubs in the Marlon Byrd deal, then eventually released, and he went to independent baseball. Remember, the one lefty that they had last handful of seasons they could count on against lefties or righties was Mike Dunn, and he signed as a free agent with Colorado. Very good against left-handers a year ago. They hit just 145 against him. As Piscotty is back to the bag safely.
Catcher likes to throw. Really might been off target most of the time. He's throwing a couple balls low on steal attempts a second. Here he almost throws it down the left field line. Cervenka really can have trouble with his command and control. But when he's right, he's tough to get base hits off of.
Here's a 2-0. And a chopper hit to short. Go the short way in a force play to D. Gordon. Cardinals strand two. They pick up two. Add to their lead. We head to the fourth. It's 3-0 St. Louis. A lot of this in 2017. Dexter Fowler. Then Johnny Peralta driving him all the way in with a triple. 3-0 St. Louis. The pen, Jonathan Broxton, back for another season with the Cardinals. Those are his numbers from a year ago. Mike Matheny talking about Broxton before the game as you get a look at Real Muto. And he said, you can look at those numbers, but he said, I'm here to tell you, there were points in time last year that he was our best reliever, that he had gotten to a point where he was in a groove. Remember, he had a long scoreless inning streak and then hit a bump in the road, especially at home. But for a while there, very, very good and reliable. On a hop hit to second, there's Colton Wong. Real Muto is the first out.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. Is he was as good a setup man as the Cardinals had, and particularly on the road. ERA was under 2 on the road. Very good against Central Division opponents. They had a 2.17 ERA and batted 183 against them.
Described as a little old school. Jonathan Broxton, very quiet, but commands tremendous respect. 10+ years in the big leagues. He's been an all-star, a closer. Dietrich to Wong. Backhanded. 2 down. The starter today, if you just joined us, Adam Wainwright for the Cardinals. 3 innings, gave up 3 hits, no runs, and 3 ground ball outs.
And I think his final inning of work was Wainwright's best, but got a couple strikeouts. You know, he's getting his ground balls. There's a double play ball off of Ichiro. So I think he'd be very pleased with his second performance this spring.
Here's Marcell Ozuna. 2 quick outs by Broxton. Fastball and a strike. Ozuna grounded out to third his first time up. Mike asked about defining what a leader is in baseball, and he said, well, there's a couple of guys that you look at in general, those that have service time in the game, they've been around for a while at the major league level, and then those that are the players that have been through a lot, maybe physically, to fight their way back and get to the big leagues. And certainly a guy like Broxton falls in that service time department. Around a long time.
11+ years at the big league level, and as you said, a couple times All-Stars, closer early in his career.
1-2 pitch, and it's a swing and a miss. So quick inning of work by Jonathan Broxton. A couple of ground outs to second and a strikeout midway through 4. And the Birds are on top. It's 3-0. Theme tickets allow fans to celebrate a common interest while enjoying access to a unique promotional item or exclusive pregame event. For more information, visit cardinals.com/theme. And again, for that series coming up, you're going to want to log on to cardinals.com by 10 a.m. tomorrow. They go on sale 10 a.m. tomorrow. The $11 seats for the upcoming Cubs series. Always one of the most popular opponents year in and year out. Cubbies will make their way to St. Louis, and for the first time we say the defending world champions in over 100 years.
Ouch.
Junichi Tazawa, one of the free agent pickups by the Marlins. There's a look at Jose Oquendo. A lot of fans ask us about Jose's role with the club. He will not head north with the big club as Greg Garcia digs in. First pitch is fouled back, but Oquendo still working for the Cardinals, will be working with the younger players, and he lives now year-round here in the state of Florida, so he'll be at this complex day in and day out and working with a lot of the younger players coming up through the system.
I had a chance to spend some time with Jose the other day in the backfields. Spent a couple hours with the STEP program watching them. I know you and Ricky spoke to him.
There's Mike Schilt, who has been added to the staff, the quality control coach for the Cardinals.
And still trying to define what that means, but
longtime coach and manager in the minor league system. Here's a 1-1.
and Mike Schultz, you know, has a reputation as a very good instructor and teacher. That's the one thing at the big league level today is there's more instructing and teaching goes on at the big league level than ever before. I've learned over the years that to have a consensus of major league coaches, and you say, what's the biggest thing you've learned? They said, never assume that they know anything.
Here's a 1-2. Garcia, first time up, an RBI base hit to drive in Adams with one out back in the second. Carson Kelly on deck. And we'll see Dexter Fowler. 2-2 the count. Outfield very shallow. Garcia slaps it the other way. That drops in for a hit. So Greg is 2 for 2.
So important to have that ability to go to the opposite field. Pitch out away from you. Don't try and pull it. You'll roll over on it. But do what he did right there. Drive the ball to the opposite field. As a pitcher, if you have a dead pull hitter, he's easy to pitch to. But if you have a guy that will spray the ball around, you can't stay in one location. You know, a hitter really has to pick one side of the plate or the other. He picks one side, you take, you know, both sides. Expand the plate.
And a strike to Carson Kelly, who bounced into a double play his first time up. Number 2 ranked Cardinal in the MLB.com rankings of the top prospects. We saw him make his major league debut a year ago and picked up his first major league hit against the Pittsburgh Pirates.
And one very important item not on that list was he was the 2015 minor league Gold Glove winner at the position of catchers.
Cardinals feel he's made tremendous strides this spring with his offense. They
Yes.
think his glove is major league ready in his arm, but trying to catch up a little bit with the bat, but he's really made some significant strides offensively here this spring.
I talked to him about that, and you know, switching positions, being a third baseman, going to catcher when he turned professional. He felt in his own mind he didn't really you know, sacrifice hitting to learn the catching trade, but it kind of the numbers reflected that. Now, as you said, the bat's starting to catch up to the defense. Cardinals going to have a tough decision on him next year. You know, he needs that full year at AAA.
Here's a 1-2. Garcia is running. He slipped, and it's slapped foul out of play.
Danny, I had, you know, the Cardinals have another decision on Yachty. You know, I know the fans and we would love to see him retire as a Cardinal. He's getting to that age, you know, how many years do you want? How many years does he want to play? But I was talking with our good friend, Ted Simmons, the great Cardinal catcher, who scouts for the Braves, and he said he put it down, he told me he put it down in his book that he sent to Atlanta, that I would sign Yadier Molina at age 50 to be a catcher. So he is the greatest defensive catcher. His mind is so sharp and the way he controls a game that I would sign him at age 50.
That's great. So Ted, today he is spending much of his time down here in Jupiter. Here's a 2-2.
Got about 10 more days here, and then he'll go watch his own club, the Atlanta Braves.
I think they're intriguing, you know, in terms of the older players that they have brought in. And, you know, if they're not in contention, certainly teams that are in contention would love to add some of the talent that they've added to their roster going into this season.
Cologne, R.A. Dickey.
They have one of the best shortstop prospects.
Swanson.
Yep, Dansby Swanson, former #1 overall pick, part of the Shelby Miller deal. Shelby Miller, by the way, was hitting 98 on the gun in his start the other day and looked very good. 3-2 the count. 7-pitch at bat. Let's see if Garcia wants to do some running. The Cardinals lead 3-0. Magneuris Sierra is on deck. That would be Fowler's spot. You would assume he's running, but I've seen now Garcia twice slipping. Once starting going towards second base, and the other time trying to just get back to the bag. Quicksand over there. He is running, and it's a double play. A strike him out, throw him out, double play. Did not have a very good jump. I'm sure he felt like he was running in place. And it brings in Sierra.
Kind of dragged that last back foot. Looked like it might have slipped again, but nowhere close. D. Gordon came in front of the bag, got the low throw, but had enough time to tag him.
I asked Mike Matheny the other day, give me some players that have opened up your eyes in terms of where they were a year ago to where they're at now. And the first player that he mentioned is the young man at the plate, Sierra, who in the minor leagues has won a batting title. He is only 21. And they feel defensively he is major league ready, to the point that a major league coach went up to Mike the other day, not with the Cardinals, but said, is Sierra going to make your team? They said, well, no, he's not going to make our team, but he's opened up some eyes. And he said, well, he's opening up our eyes. We've seen him a bunch, and our scouts love him. 1 ball and 1 strike.
And he's got that body that he's going to fill it out even more. He's picked up a few pounds from a year ago, but you know, he hasn't been above A ball. But we should hear about him for a long time.
And that's hit out of play.
I mentioned that I would spend some time over with Gary LaRocque. Introduced me a few of the players that were at the STEP program. Now the minor leaguers are in camp. They're taking physicals yesterday and today, or they reported today for the first day in physicals. But one thing he made me do is shake hands with Delvin Perez. And he said, wait till you see this handshake. And I shook his hands, and it's one of the strongest grips.
Couple of hop sets, hit to second. Sierra really gets down the line, and he's the third and final out. We head to the 5th. 3-0 Cardinals. Brought to you in part by your local St. Louis Hyundai dealers. Better drive us. by Shelter Insurance. For your auto, home, and life, we're your shield, we're your shelter. And by the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket you play gives back to schools across Missouri. So play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. So look at one of the top young prospects for the Cardinals, Jack Flaherty, wearing number 92. He pitched last year at Palm Beach right here, and he went 5-9 with an ERA under 4. Went to Harvard Westlake High School. A couple of his teammates were first-round picks. He was a third baseman, and for the Cardinals to get him, they got him at the 34th overall pick in 2014, gave him a huge signing bonus, and they think eventually we'll be talking about Jack Flaherty in the major leagues.
Doesn't throw as hard as you may think. They feel like he's pretty mature and has a 4-pitch repertoire, and feel like he is potentially a rotation guy.
A lot of strikes.
6'4", 225.
0-2 the count. Justin Bour at the plate.
He was a 2-time Southern Selection Division I Player of the Year. He also, his last 2 years at high school, was 23-0 with a 0.63. Not bad, huh?
That'll get your attention. There's a good curveball right there.
Yes, sir.
Strikeout for Flaherty of Bour. This is the pitch that they had talked about he's really working on. That's nasty right there.
Yeah. I mean, look at it, true 12-6. Really slowed up his motion, but really pulled down on it and had that downward bite.
One on, nobody on, and here is Ichiro. And strike one. According to the scouts, this is what Flaherty does. He pounds the strike zone.
That was 93.
As you mentioned, not overpowering with the fastball, but still room to grow into the body, even though he's pretty put together.
Yeah, he's 21 years of age. You said #1 draft pick in 2014.
1-1. This has got to be a thrill for Jack Flaherty facing Ichiro. I was playing golf the other day with Rick Horton, and we just happened to run into Mike Schmidt. So we struck up a conversation with the former Phillies third baseman and Hall of Famer, as Sierra gets a good jump on it and makes the catch. Ricky said that was my moment where one time I was in the big leagues and facing Mike Schmidt, where I had to walk off the mound because he said to himself, I'm facing Mike Schmidt. Well, maybe Jack Flaherty had that moment there with Ichiro. Who knows?
Well, Ichiro's going to end up where Mike Schmidt is.
Cooperstown.
Cooperstown.
Tomas Talis, and a fastball taken just a bit low. Mike is going to be doing some work with the Phillies again on their weekend telecast. He's in uniform this week and helping out some of their younger players. Slowly hit the third and taken by Peralta. Flaherty is scoreless. Top of 5. Cardinals lead this ballgame 3-0.
From the moment
bullpen takes us to Kyle Lobstein. Appeared in 14 games. Matter of fact, he was working out of the bullpen late in the season when we saw Miami at Marlins Park. Pitched against the Cardinals as he went 2-0. So Lobstein and Cervinka, a couple lefties that could make their pen for Don Mattingly's club. 3-0 St. Louis with the lead as we move to the bottom of the 5th. And Colton Wong will lead it off, followed by Johnny Peralta and then Steven Piscotty. I'm assuming that you had the chance to talk for a while at that Dinner of Champions in Evansville, Indiana with Don Mattingly.
Yeah, it's a great event. Every year Mattingly is there. He's from Evansville, and a lot of times Bob Greasy, Hall of Fame quarterback with Miami, comes back home, and you know, it's just a fun time. And I know I asked him about dealing with the death of Fernandez, and just, you know, nothing prepares you, you know, for something like that. The death of a player during the season. Cardinals have had to experience it a couple times, and something that you don't want. And he said Fernandez was just such a charismatic personality. He said sometimes I get mad at him, but I couldn't get mad at him long because he was just so much of a, you know, just loved life and the game itself. But boy, he was one of the premier pitchers in all of baseball, and to lose him at such a young age.
One of the things I always thought about with Jose Fernandez was during these spring training games, and we obviously would see the Marlins a lot sharing this complex, but the time that he spent with the fans and interacting with pictures or autographs during the game, and when he would leave a game if he pitched, I mean, there'd be not just 5 minutes of autographs. It was inning after inning he'd stay to sign for folks. And when he would pitch, it's the ballpark, for those that aren't familiar with it, in Miami's in Little Havana, so a lot of the folks that are from Cuba would come out to see him pitch. Their attendance would be up 5,000 to 7,000 more the nights that he would go.
You see the tribute to him, the number 16, and understand they're
up the middle, and that is past JT Riddle and a base hit for Cold Wong.
They're working on a statue or some kind of a permanent gesture towards the Fernandez. There you see Riddle, that ball took a little crazy hop, came up on him and on through.
They actually have a 2.5-mile stretch of 17th Avenue that begins at US 1, runs north to River Drive there in Miami, and that passes right by Marlins Park. It'll be known as Jose Fernandez Avenue. They're also trying to create a memorial for him as well at the ballpark.
You know, at that dinner also this year was Roger Clemens, and you know, I would have to praise him for how he treated. They bring in all the young players that have been signed throughout the area there, have them there and get recognized. And you talk about a guy asking a question of a Hall of Fame. You know, Roger would be there sometime. Looked like, but they would sit there and just eating up every word he had to say in the back there.
One of the great moments of last season is boyhood friend Aledmys Diaz, his first game back after the service for Fernandez, and hit the grand slam, his first at bat. Those two grew up on the same street in Cuba. Peralta jumps on that pitch, sinking, and Ozuna can't come up with it. That'll go to the track, and Wong can run. He is flying around third, and he will score. That makes it a 4-0 St. Louis lead.
Second RBI for Johnny Peralta. Touched on, but I think Peralta's going to have a very, very solid year. You know, last year he had the injury in spring training, injured the thumb, and think about how long it took. The difference between Yadier Molina's first half offense and his second half offense. Well, Johnny's in that position now where that thumb is healed and final year of his contract. His day has come to an end, but boy, is he going to be a presence for the Cardinals this year.
It's Patrick Wisdom, the runner at second base. You know, you've got Ozuna in left field, everyday center fielder for the Marlins, and in a couple games that he's played left, and he's been forced to because they didn't want Ichiro to play early on, and they had Yelich in center because Ozuna had a lower leg injury he's been dealing with. He has not looked
looks awkward
all that good in left field. That's the second misplay that he's had.
I agree with you, and you know, a lot of people feel that center field is easier than the corner positions.
Randall Grichuk is finding out about that.
Yeah, he said that, he mentioned that also.
Here's Piscotty at the plate. He's been hit by a pitch and also grounded out to third. Wisdom, by the way, the runner at second base, hit a long home run over the weekend against the Nationals in the bottom of the ninth. Game that eventually finished up a 1-1 tie.
And then the next day he hit another home run at Port St. Lucie against the Mets. So
here's a 1-1. So this is Saturday in a game that we had on Fox Sports Midwest. The wind was really blowing in. It was 20-25 miles an hour, and he just destroyed that pitch.
Well, you look how big he is. And, you know, we talked about Carson Kelly and Piscotty and Wisdom. The three all signed in the same draft class. All three of them were third basemen. They kept Patrick at third. Piscotty, who's hitting, gets hit by a pitch for the second time. They made him a right fielder, and Carson Kelly a catcher. But they say Wisdom has the best throwing arm, you know, in the Cardinal minor league system. They say defensively he's an outstanding third baseman. His biggest problem is himself. And, you know, it's not that big of a problem. You know, he gets so hard on himself and, you know, do some stupid things like all young guys do. But, you know, you can curtail that. You can get that under control. But he's got some talent.
It's Todd Cunningham, the new runner, to pinch run for Piscotty. Get him out of the game. Make sure that he doesn't get hit again. And remember, he was part of the play at second base in which Miguel Rojas was hit on the side of the head. Piscotty was running. Adams is 1 for 1. Walked back in the third and singled and scored in inning number 2. Runners at first and second. Outfield is fairly shallow for a guy that can pop it. Off the end of the bat, Squibber rolls foul. Well, looking for a great private evening space for an upcoming meeting or party, Cardinals Nation at Ballpark Village, open 7 days a week. Variety of perfect spaces for groups of all sizes. For more information, visit cardinalsnation.com. Vicki Bryan and her group get ready for the season. Ballpark Village, a lot of fun. 0-2 pitch. Ground ball and could be 2. Gordon, Riddle, 4. Double play, 4-6-3. Runner advances to third, and it brings in Jed Jerko's spot. They may pinch hit for him.
Anthony Garcia is at the batter's box,
so Garcia will pinch hit for Jerko, who is 0 for 2 today. Jed was the DH. 2 outs and a runner at third. 4-0 Cardinals. First pitch is a strike. No activity in the Cardinals pen. As it looks like Flaherty will continue in this game. He had a 1-2-3, top of 5.
he's a young man that's going to be, you know, in the rotation, so they can stretch him out.
Garcia hits it out of play and foul. Wherever you may be, we hope you're enjoying Cardinals baseball. A cloudy, windy afternoon from Jupiter, Florida. Roger Dean Stadium. Al Raboski alongside. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Runner at third is Wisdom. 0-2 the count on Garcia's time is called.
Trouble getting together. He wanted the slider eventually.
0-2. And Garcia hits it in the air out to left. Ozuna near the line and makes the catch. Cardinals pick up a run. Add to their lead. It's 4-0 St. Louis. McDonald's Ticket Fest is back starting tomorrow morning. Fans can purchase tickets to see the Cardinals play the Cubs at Busch Stadium the 4th and the 5th for as low as $11. $11 seats on sale tomorrow 10 a.m. at cardinals.com/McDonald's. World champion Cubs will be in town.
Danny, it looks like we've come to the fun part of the game. And an outfield of Bader, Sierra, Cunningham.
You gonna tell me where they're at?
Just what I said. Bader's in left, Sierra's in center, and Cunningham in right. Flaherty's back on the mound, but then on the infield it's Wisdom, Garcia, Valera, and Martinez moves from left to first base. Flaherty had a real nice 1-2-3 fifth inning for the Cardinals. Strikeout.
This is Matt Dendecker at the plate. Right down central, 2-1. Riddle on deck. The 2-2 now. Upcoming to Matt Dendecker, who is struck out 0 for 1. Wainwright went 3 innings. Broxton a very efficient 4th inning. Flaherty in his 2nd inning of work. And the 2-2. A little bit high. And that's our first game back with Tom Mead. Longtime director.
Mid-season form, maybe.
Swing and a miss. I think I can only hear back home what we hear in our ears.
Oh, yeah.
Great to have you back, Tom.
Flaherty retired all 4 batters, 2 of them by strikeout. See a little movement up there and pitch up in the zone, but you know, #1 draft pick every year, rookie league, low A, high A. He'll go probably to AA this year, AAA next year, right on schedule, and be flitting at the door at about 23 years of age at the big league rotation.
JT Riddle at the plate. Tim Trokey is our producer today.
Doing a great job.
Here's a 1-0 pitch. Breaking ball taken low. 2 balls and no strikes. Washington will be here. We'll also see Atlanta this week on some games that'll be broadcast on Fox Sports Midwest. Here's a 2-0 pitch. Get a look at the Houston Astros. They were aggressive this offseason. Carlos Beltran, part of their team, added Reddick, and one of the favorites in the AL West. Here's a 3-0. They've opened up a new ballpark not too far away from here in West Palm, and we'll see more of Houston this spring training. Beautiful. And Washington too.
Yeah, beautiful complex.
That's well hit into deep right field. That ball will carry, and it is off the wall. Riddle on his way to third. Riddle will be held up at third. Cardinals had issues getting that ball back in the infield. Backing up on the play, Flaherty, and it's a triple.
Sierra, the center fielder, cuts it off as Cunningham, the right fielder, you see him chase there. He's a little too close to it, so it carries off the wall and gets by him. Sierra had a little trouble picking it up. He's got a real good throwing arm, so I was anxious to see him if we would have picked it up clean. And then he just fires it back towards the middle, but Flaherty was right where he belongs, right between, home plate and third base, and that ball went right to Flaherty. And see, Riddle almost took off, but the pitcher was there covering where he should have been. Cuts him off.
Here's D. Gordon. He is 0 for 2, back to the top of the lineup. Bunts it, puts it in play. Flaherty flips to home and out at the plate. Flaherty to Kelly, and that's out number 2.
Not a bad idea from D. Gordon. The way with his speed, you bunt for a base hit, you got to go. You see how he picks it up with his glove and flips it? That's the way you're taught. But I mean, it's tough to control trying to get something on it. He always used a big glove and it would get stuck in the webbing. So he flips it up there. And remember, a catcher has to give the runner a lane, so it's tough to get that guy. Almost a perfect bunt, but yet the Cardinals defense was on top. And really 2 young players right there executed very well.
Perez will pinch run for D. Gordon. And it's JT Realmuto. Realmuto is 1 for 2. Flaherty was known in high school, as I mentioned earlier, as a very good third baseman, good infielder, and the Cardinals had to up the bonus money and the signing bonus to convince him to be a pitcher full time.
And he committed to North Carolina, collegiately.
Fastball and a strike.
Well, he's used to coming in on bunts, huh?
There you go. A lot of times you do see a young player, though, they get a little ahead of themselves on those types of plays.
I bet that was part of D. Gordon's strategy right there. Oh, I got a young pitcher out there. He'll mess it up.
We're in the top of the 6th, 4-0 Cardinals. 2 outs and a runner at first. Right-hander begins to throw in the Cardinals pen. Cardinals were thinking Miguel Sokolovich, Arturo Reyes, Josh Lucas, in addition to those that we've already seen here pitch this afternoon.
Mitch Harris throwing. A Naval graduate who was out all last year with elbow surgery.
This week just seeing live action, game action for the first time. Here's a 1-1. He's recovering from not Tommy John, but Mitch Harris coming back from an elbow surgery. And they may call it the Seth Maness surgery before it's all said and done, but it's a form of arm surgery in which it's not quite Tommy John, and it does allow the pitcher in recovery time a quicker return to the big leagues.
Partial tear, right?
Curveball taken low.
Zach Duke, who told me, Boy, we lost him. He pitched so well since being the trade deadline acquisition by the Cardinals last year. Well, he said he was pitching since '08 with a partial tear in his, collateral ligament.
Doesn't it seem like it's not if, it's just when anymore with a pitcher, right? It's part of the game now.
And Reyes, had his partial tear for a couple of years.
The 2-2. Blew it by him. So Flaherty 2 scoreless innings, and he helps his own cause with an all-star at the plate and a runner at third. D. Gordon lays down the bunt, and Jack Flaherty makes the play to Kelly. Keeps the Marlins off the board. 4-0. Garland and Garcia, left-hander that split time with AAA and the big club last year, made his major league debut a couple of seasons ago. He was part of the Futures game, and for Mike Matheny's club, defense has stood out. This throw by Martinez early on, and then moments ago to save a run, Jack Flaherty. The bunt play. Getting the runner Riddle trying to score. The Marlins have been held off the board. Jose Martinez leads it off, and the first pitch is a strike. Underway here in the bottom of the 6th. Martinez has walked and also hit into a fielder's choice.
Got 3 home runs on the spring with 7 RBIs.
Inside, 1 ball and 1 strike.
Garcia pitching here is rated as their 4th best prospect. He only threw 50 innings last year due to an early season tricep injury. Had a mid-90s fastball, improving curveball. 24 years of age, out of the Dominican.
Really looking forward to getting a look at the matchup tomorrow. Michael Wacha and Steven Strasburg. Strasburg was terrific last time out against the Cardinals, and Wacha has been very good and impressive here early in camp.
That was the matchup the other day at the other ballpark in the Palm Beaches. We're home to the Nationals and Houston Astros. Right about 15 minutes away. Boy, is that nice to have 2 more teams that close.
Like seeing Don Mattingly, but not that much. Garcia delivers to Martinez, and it's popped foul.
And I like seeing Dusty Baker.
So it's always fun seeing Dusty.
We'll see him tomorrow.
For us in the media, he's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Dusty, tell us about Joe Blow. You'll get the full rundown on Joe Blow. We'll find out all about.
Can't use the adjectives he uses.
Martinez drives it into center. And the catch is made. That's Brandon Barnes who took over in center field. So Jose is 0 for 2 with a walk. This will be Wilfredo Tovar. He'll be the hitter. The spot that was occupied by Greg Garcia, who went 2 for 2 today with an RBI. First pitch taken high. See all the scouts behind home plate, which does include Ted Simmons, but usually here at spring training it's roughly 10 to 15 scouts. They've got the guns out taking notes. Player doesn't make it, maybe with their respective club. It's a chance with another team in Major League Baseball.
You can play, they'll find you.
The 2-1 pitch. 2-2. Lino is on deck.
Wilfredo Tovar out of Venezuela, 25 years of age. He'll turn 26 on August 11th. It's one of those 6-year minor league free agents. At one time you signed a contract and you were property of that club until they decided you were through.
Ground ball that's hit to third. Out number 2. In steps Gabriel Lino.
You could sign a contract, you know, as a 17-year-old player, something like that, and they own the rights to you for life. You could even put you on the restricted list, and you can't play with anybody. You know, so free agency came in mid-70s to major leagues. Then through negotiations, they came up with a 6-year minor league free agent. That's really helped out a lot of guys.
Edward Jones is honored to sponsor the Cardinals Hall of Fame and the annual induction process. Gives fans a voice in honoring the team's greatest players. Be a part of the fan voting process today. Submit your vote. 7-man ballot at cardinals.com/HOF. Great names on that ballot.
They're all well deserving.
Mark McGwire a year ago is just a handful of votes away from making the Cardinals Hall of Fame. Joe Torre and Chris Carpenter went in. There's a swing and a miss by Lino. Carlton Hernandez, Izzy, the all-time saves leader. Tim McCarver, he'll be back with us on Fox Sports Midwest. Big Mac, Edgar Renteria, and Scott Rowland for the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And the 1-2 pitch taken high. Carlton, a new addition this year to that ballot, along with Tim McCarver. We get the chance to catch up with Keith Hernandez in New York every year. The 2-2 and a swing and a miss. Cardinals go down here in the bottom of the 6th. St. Louis with the lead as we head to the 7th. It's 4-0 Cardinals. first appearance of the spring in live action. That is Mitch Harris. Gets a nice round of applause. He served 5 years of active duty in the Navy following selection by the Cardinals in the 2008 draft, and then eventually became a major leaguer. I'll never forget, we were doing a game. It's probably been 4 years ago, I guess, and the Cardinals put him in a game. He got a standing ovation, and at that time there weren't many that thought Mitch Harris is going to be a major leaguer. He was throwing probably 87, 88 miles an hour. He got roughed up, and then the amazing story of Mitch Harris began and his slow way back to big league baseball.
Danny, I remember it, and I'm thinking it was more like 80 miles now. After 5 years of active duty for the Navy, came out as a lieutenant and still in the reserves after serving a commitment to go to the Naval Academy, and then to reach the big leagues back in 2015. Last year he missed the entire year with an elbow surgery. It was quite a story, and he's 31 years of age and still got the dream and everything, but as he kind of stretched that arm out, the velocity came back before surgery. That last one looked like he's delivering the ball pretty well.
First pitch was at 92. Harris was a 13th round pick, 2008. 1-2 pitch. And it's popped foul off the bat of Brian Anderson. Many of you know the story. Those of you that are watching on MLB Network, it is a great story. Mitch Harris, second Naval Academy baseball player to reach the major leagues, and the first since 1921. That was Nemo Gaines of the Washington Senators. And it's a strikeout. Welcome back, Mitch Harris.
That's great.
Talking with Mitch the other day, and he said he was starting to feel pretty good by the end of last week, and fingers crossed that he would get into a major league game this week. So here we are early in the week. It's got to be a bit surprising maybe for the club to see him out there.
Well, and as you said, you were talking about all the scouts here.
There's Destin Hood.
Probably tough for him to make the Cardinals, but you're out there auditioning for everybody in baseball, and I'm sure that if there was a club that wanted him, the Cardinals would accommodate and make it a easy deal because they have so much respect for him. And he was drafted before he went to the Naval Academy by Atlanta.
It was 24th round in 2007. Naval Academy came to him. He talked it over with his parents. He said it was an easy decision at that time. He said, of course, I had the dream of being a baseball player, but to serve my country was first and foremost. The 0-2.
And Dan, there were, there have been a few football players that were able to get out of their commitment and play professionally, and that just didn't happen. He accepted the fact that I've got to serve our country, and the story is about him being on ships and found a Dominican cook to kind of use as a catcher, and he wasn't very good, but you learn to throw strikes, because if the catcher couldn't catch it, it went into the sea.
And that's a true story.
Yeah.
So his dad used to send him baseballs everywhere around the world, wherever he might be stationed, just to try to continue to play baseball, to keep the arm in some type of shape. So he was required to serve 5 years following graduation before he reported to the Cardinals. And while at the Naval Academy, he was a 3-time All-American, and at one point was a utility player too. He was on the Brooks Wallace Award list, which is for the National Player of the Year, also the Roger Clemens National Pitcher of the Year. He was on that list too. 3-2 pitch, and he walked him. So Hood is aboard, and keep an eye on him. He can fly. Matt Youngall will be the hitter. see how far the Cardinals go with Mitch Harris. They already have a right-hander getting loose in the pen.
Ponce de Leon.
That pitch taken a bit high.
His velocity's been consistent at 92. He had that split finger that improved over the course of the year in 15.
Fights it off into shallow center, and it's a base hit. So walk, and now a single following the strikeout to start the 7th. Brings in Sierra, the right fielder. There's Perry Hill, the first base coach of the Marlins, and he's the equivalent of what Jose Oquendo does for the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's recognized as another outstanding infield instructor.
Been around a long time. First pitch to Sierra, swung on and missed. That splitter looks pretty good here today.
Yeah. Get on top of it and see it just bottoming out.
0-1 pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike. On the air tomorrow, St. Louis time at noon. And that's hit down the right field line, and it stays fair and rolls to the wall. 1 run is in. Here comes another. And the Marlins get on the board and cut this lead in half. It's now 4-2 following the double by Sierra. Brings in Ramon Cabrera.
That 2-run double was hit by the Cardinals Sierra.
Cabrera lines it over short and into center field. So runners at the corners. The tying runs are aboard for Brandon Barnes. A walk, and now 3 consecutive hits against Harris.
Game of inches. Just missed it.
So Brandon Barnes trying to make this club as an extra man for Don Mattingly. Comes up in a key spot in this game. Big Cardinal fan Justin Youngblood is here today. Wants to say hi to family and friends. Justin Youngblood. Here's a 1-0 pitch. That is hammered down the left field line, but foul. That might get one of the players' cars. But for Mitch Harris, it's a long strike 1.
As you said, just getting back out there, and chance to pitch in a professional game after the elbow surgery.
Had him out in front, and it's popped up.
All right, come on. And score on that.
So 2 outs, runners at the corners. And the batter will be Riddle, who tripled back in the 6th. Daniel Ponce de Leon continues to throw in the Cardinals' pen, trying to loosen up that right arm and maybe find the fountain of youth. Think he's ever heard that before?
Yeah.
Had to do it.
I know you did.
I had to. May not see him again. Pitch just outside, and there's ball one. Riddle came in the spot occupied by Rojas. Rojas was injured on a play at second base. The throw. He's trying to cover the bag, and it hit the side of his head. Seemed to be okay. Easy for us to say, but he had to leave this game. It's in the dirt. And it's 2 balls and no strikes. Foul ball. 2-1 the count. Little check swing hit to the left side, and this should do it. Oh, out is the call. Throw was a bit high, but back to the bag. Harris, his first time in 2017, gives up a couple of runs. It's now 4-2. And the Cardinals are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the 1967 World Series championship and the 30th anniversary of the '87 National League pennant winners with great replica ring promotions. Get your tickets now through the 5-game ring pack or as a single game ticket right now. They're on sale right now at Cardinals.com. Also mention that tomorrow tickets for the Cubs series for the 4th and the 5th will go on sale at 10 a.m. Cardinals.com/McDonald's. Those are as low as $11 tomorrow at 10 a.m. This is Matt Tomshaw. His entire pro career has been in the minor leagues. Left-hander deals with Sierra, who's hitting .400 this spring.
Left-handed, to have a breaking ball and a heartbeat, and you got a chance.
4-2 our score. And Sierra looks at a ball low. 2-0 the count.
Sierra, one of the most impressive young Cardinal players. Got a Player of the Year award. He's got great speed, hit for high average. Outstanding defensive player. Hadn't been beyond A ball though.
It's the other way, and that will drop for a leadoff base hit. Now the other thing he can do is swipe bags. He's got very, very good speed, and he's aggressive. So Sierra leadoff hit.
Sweeping swing right there. And they feel that his power will develop. It's usually the last of the big tools, the 5 tools to develop, and in his case they think he would be a legitimate 5-tool player.
Here's Valera. That pitch taken inside. Took over for Colton Wong after he singled. Wong went 1 for 3 today and was lifted back in inning number 5. Pretty big lead there for Sierra. And a strike. It's not only that the stolen base numbers piled up, but also the caught stealing for Sierra. He had nearly 50 attempts a year ago. Here's a 1-1 pitch. Valera with a fly ball out to center. That's the first out. Sierra stays put, and there's one away.
Stealing bases a lot more than just having good speed. You almost have to have an arrogant attitude that defies pitchers and catchers to try and throw you out. You got to have that ultimate confidence. You can't be afraid of making a mistake. And that's why, Mike Matheny wants these young guys, hey, this is get a chance to go out there and find out what you can and can't do.
Here's Patrick Wisdom. He took over for Peralta, who had a big day. Peralta went 2 for 3. A couple of RBIs and a run scored with a double and a triple. And he was lifted also in inning number 5. Here's the 0-1 instead of check on Sierra. Ali Marmol is your new first base coach for the Cardinals. So they've added Mike Schilt as the quality control coach, and Marmol takes over at first base. He was drafted by the Cardinals, spent time in the minor leagues, and at one point he was the youngest manager in all of professional baseball as Sierra is running and picked off. And now there's 2 down.
Now it's part of learning how to do it. The one thing I like there is don't stop and get a run down. It is spring training, but at the major league level, most of the time they're going to execute that. So just run, keep on running hard, and maybe he'll make a bad throw.
Oh, 1 pitch, taken low, 1 ball and 1 strike.
Where you miss Lou Brock coming down here to take Sierra aside and tell him how to get jumps, how to get read the pitcher. Lou felt like if he had got 1 throw, he would find what the key was for him to steal off of that pitcher.
The 2-1. Wisdom, fly ball, deep left. Will it carry? It is gone. Patrick Wisdom has done it again. A solo home run as he shows off his power and adds to the Cardinals' lead. It's now 5-2.
I mentioned that Patrick, he's big, he's strong, he's just really what he said he is his own worst enemy. He gets, gets down on himself, or kind of gets uses emotion. But boy, this week, his 3rd home run this week, and really coming into his own, that power to position.
You make an impression too.
No doubt about it. Remember, think about it, Peralta, who we think is going to play every day at third base. This is his final year of his contract. Turco, hit 30 home runs, is going to be all around the diamond. He's got a few years left on his contract, but Patrick Wisdom You know, they've kept him at third in the minor leagues for a reason.
Todd Cunningham pulls it foul.
You look at Wisdom's minor league numbers, and you know, when they say he can pick it defensively, he's got the best throwing arm in the minor leagues, but his offense has always been behind, but he's made great strides this season.
2-2 the count. Cunningham has had big league time. He made his major league debut with the Braves back in 2013. And the Cardinals now his third organization. Braves, the Angels, and now St. Louis. At one point he was the Braves Organizational Player of the Year in 2012. Two is a breaking ball, and it's popped out. Foul territory, and the catch is made. Patrick Wisdom, a solo home run, his third of the spring, adds to the Cardinals' lead. So Patrick Wisdom with the home run. He's at first base. His third of the spring to make it a 5-2 St. Louis lead. Cardinals about hit the Marlins 10-7. New pitcher is Daniel Ponce de Leon. 6'3", 200 pounds. He spent all of last year at Double-A as a starter, went 9-8. He's drafted 4 different times by 4 different teams before landing with the Cardinals organization. The Rays, the Reds, the Cubs, and the Cardinals in 2014. Played college baseball at Cypress College, then went to the University of Arizona, went to an aeronautical school in Houston, which was an NAIA college, as he bounced all around in the collegiate ranks before finally hitting the pro ranks with St. Louis.
He's 25 years of age now.
2-1 pitch, fouled back. This is Jeffrey Perez, who's a top 10 prospect in the Marlins organization. The 2-2 pitch. Ground ball to first. Wisdom is there. Takes it himself for the out. Tomorrow, great matchup. Steven Strasburg against that man, Michael Wacha. Coverage begins at noon. You'll see that great changeup on display. And the fastball has been very good down here in spring as well. Michael Wacha gets the call for Mike Matheny's club. Here's Moran. Cam Moran, the batter for the Marlins. 0-1 pitch. Another chance for Wisdom. Stays with it. Steps on the bag for the out. And there's 2 down. The batter will be Brian Anderson. 2 quick outs for Ponce de Leon.
And the one thing about him is right-handed batters last year hit just 229 against him, and lefties not much better at 235.
He went from a 24th round selection to a 38th round pick, then 14th round by the Cubs, and eventually the 9th round by the Cardinals in 2014. 2 outs and nobody on. 5-2 our score. Pitch to Anderson is taken low for a ball outside. He took off and got the attention of the Cardinals back in 2015. He appeared in starting Palm Beach and then Peoria and went 11-2 and has a 1-2-3 8th inning. Nice work for Daniel Ponce de Leon. Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you in part by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals, and by Steak and Shake. 24 meals under $4. Afternoon started out with rain, and that is moved on, but the lights have been on since the first pitch here at Roger Dean Stadium. Intriguing man that wears number 88 for the Cardinals, Harrison Bader. He is put together. He played at the University of Florida. Had a home run in one of our first games down here in the spring. Made a quick rise through the Cardinals minor league system a year ago. Bader hits it sharply past third. Wide turnaround first, and he'll stop there. One thing you notice about Bader, he's, like I said, put together, but every swing, I mean, it's all or nothing, man.
Yeah.
And he's going after it.
And he's got some power. He's got some pop. He's from New York. His father was very instrumental with him, and to the point where he said I would hit him quite frequently just to make sure he wouldn't be afraid of the ball. So never above the waist, but above the shoulders. But he went to a prep school in New York that cost $47,000 a year. His father was is the lead counsel for Verizon. But he has really opened up some eyes down here, and really, we'd have to say he and DeJean are some of the top prospects that are biggest impressions that have left with the coaching staff.
This is Anthony Garcia at the plate. Yeah, DeJong has done a nice job moving from third base to short. Bader's kind of the poster child for exit velocity. Ball jumps off his bat. Next pitch to Anthony Garcia is taken for a ball inside.
Garcia got a lot of playing time last year in spring.
Fights it off. This will sink in for a base hit. Bader stops at second. So the first two have reached. Runners at first and second. See a pinch runner come in for Garcia. I believe that is Jordan Schaefer.
Yes, it is.
Schaefer, one of the interesting stories in this camp, trying to make the club both as a outfielder and a pitcher. And here is Paul DeJong. He played collegiately inside the Missouri Valley Conference, St. Louis based. Illinois State Redbird. And his basketball team lost over the weekend against Wichita State in the Valley final. But Dan Muller and his club put together a great year. Another curveball drops in quickly, 0-2. Second inning of work for Tom Shaw. Popped up and out of play.
What are your impressions of DeJong?
Well, I look more at his defense, knowing what we saw in the Arizona Fall League, which was he shows up as a third baseman and then they move him to short. And I'll tell you what, Al, early on he was getting more playing time and handled everything very, very well.
Yeah, and swinging the bat, doing a lot of things that open the eyes. Has the ability to play, second, short, and third.
There is HBO, and that's one of the correspondents there on the right, but that's Ricky Ankiel on the left. HBO is doing a profile at Ricky Ankiel. He has a new book coming out that'll be released in a couple of weeks, I believe. I had an advanced copy and talking with Rick in the off season, and it's really enlightening on the various things that he went through, going through what he did both personally and professionally. And Rick will be on our game with us Thursday as DeJong hits it out to left. Catch will be made and the runners have to stay put. So HBO is in town to do a profile for Real Sports. And that's one of the reporters that he's visiting with right there. The producers are here. But if you get a chance to read the book, it's really, really good.
Yeah, and I know Rick's all excited about that book and very open.
He said the thing that he's most excited about, he said, it's not like I'm coming clean with my life. He said maybe somebody reads it and is going through the same anxieties that I went through as a player, to where all of a sudden I can't throw the ball over the plate, something I've done my entire life. As Wilfredo Tovar digs in. And Tovar hits it left side. That's a base hit. Bader will be waved in. It's misplayed and left. And this will make it a 6-2 St. Louis lead.
It's good with the bobble out there. Bader was going to hold up, but then when Hood bobbled the ball, he comes on home. Third. They haven't put an error up there yet, but have to think that has to be an error. Be the third for the Marlins.
Here's Lino, his second plate appearance. Takes a strike. Ricky Ankiel, for all of us that were around when he first came up and saw the demise and then the comeback, it's one of the great stories we've ever seen in baseball. Lino hits it off the plate, and everybody is safe. Schaefer scores as he shows off his speed. It's now a 7-2 St. Louis lead.
I'm shocked, just couldn't get it out of his glove. Came in and fielded the ball, but couldn't make the shovel pass to his catcher. So Schaefer's going to come right on down the line, racing hard, and Lino gets not only the RBI but a base hit.
Another look at Sierra. Runners at the corners. 7-2 Cardinals. 14 hits for St. Louis in this ball game. Rick's going to be back with us doing some of the pre and post game shows, and he'll be on the air with our broadcast Thursday. Sierra 1 for 2. He singled and then was picked off trying to steal. Here's a 1-0. Breaking ball, drops in for a strike.
You know, Dan, I don't think any of us really thought that there was a legitimate shot that Rick would come back, and even if someone did, to come back and do what he did. Well, he had 25 home runs one year.
Right.
But now to watch him in fantasy camp, you know, he still was an exceptional athlete.
Here's a 2-1 pitch. And Sierra hits it out of play.
There's a vast difference in the comparison I'm going to make, but for the only person you could compare that won 11 games in a season and had a 25 home run season as an outfielder with Babe Ruth. There's a lot of difference in between, but that's the comparison.
Jordan Schaefer trying to do that this year, and if he would make the club, how interesting that might be to see his speed. He's one of the faster players on this roster. Good defensive player, a former opening day center fielder for a couple of different teams, and also could pitch. 3-2, and the bases are loaded. Jordan Schaefer told me that when the idea was brought to his attention, he was open to it. He had done that in high school. He had thrown, and he was topping out around 88 miles an hour. Then last year he was hitting 91 to 93, and he thinks with a full year dedicated to pitching that the velocity could get to 94, 95, maybe 96.
And he's got a little decent breaking ball too, but I think that, you know, start getting real gimmicky, trying to figure out how to use him.
Now Valera, and a breaking ball and a strike. You're talking about seeing Rick at fantasy camp. He still has a cannon for an arm, and I'll ask him Thursday just if he'd ever given thought to trying to come back as a pitcher again.
I've asked him and he said no.
He's told me that too, but when the check stops, sometimes that's a motivation that we all have to face when the money stops coming in, right?
That's why we asked him.
Here's a 1-1. Up the middle, and that's a base hit. 1 run is in. Here comes another. This will make it a 9-2 Cardinals lead.
It's fun to watch the young kids get a chance to come up here and play, but you kind of have to remember too, it's minor leaguers against minor leaguers. Right up the middle.
Last thing that Don Mattingly wanted to do was have to go to his bullpen and get somebody up, and that's exactly what's happened here. Right-hander starts to throw. That's Juan Nieves, the pitching coach of the Marlins. He's back for another year. One of the changes that the Marlins have this season, pretty big name, no longer a part of their staff, and that's Barry Bonds.
You know, Barry's got an old, Mattingly's got an old teammate as his hitting coach, and then they brought back the assistant hitting coach that before Bonds, but
here is Wisdom, who homered his first time up, now with 3 this spring. 9-2 Cardinals, as they've tacked on 4 here in the bottom of the 8th.
Pagarulo is his hitting coach and teammate.
Runners at first and second, and a 1-0 pitch to Wisdom. In the air to center. Thinking about center field and 2 great throws as runners back safely into second base, but Rick Ankiel's throws in Colorado were 2 of the best I think we've ever seen. It was unbelievable.
They're fun, and you know, it's really a lost art. Here you go, first one in Colorado. Troy Glass trying to deke the runner, but I think the second one was the better one because of how far he had to run. Watch this.
There's a ground ball off the bat of Todd Cunningham, and he is out. A look again at the greatness of Rick Ankiel. That God-given arm. Incredible. (14-7), and they lead it 9-2. Miguel Sokolovic will take over. You know, anytime that he's been up with the big club, it seems like he gets outs, and he is out of options. So he would have to break north with the club to stay with St. Louis.
And I think he's proven that he can pitch at the major league level. Where if he does not make the team, the Cardinals probably would lose him.
This is Destin Hood. Young man with great speed, very good athlete. Popped up. Wisdom is over on that right side. He calls for it and makes the catch. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals.
You know, since he got to the big leagues in 2012, he's really done a good job of limiting hitters to a 182 average. You know, last year, 15 games with St. Louis and 2 stints. He was 1-0 with ERA at 2.
0-1 pitch. Matt Youngel at the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. 9-2 our score here in the top of the 9th.
Right-handers last year were 0-59 against him. You know, lefties 125.
Good sinker, good changeup.
Stranded 11 of 12 inherited runners. You know, he's not going to blow you away with the radar gun, but he gets people out.
Out in front, and it's popped up into shallow right. And Valera, known for his glove, puts that away, and the Cardinals 1 out away from picking up another win here this spring. Cardinals trying to go to 8-3-1 this spring and drop the Marlins to 3-7-1.
Kind of a frustrating loss yesterday. They had 2 outs, nobody on, and 2 errors in the infield, and the Twins tied it up at 1-1. It was a great pitching by the Cardinals. They got an early run about the 2nd or 3rd inning, and that held up until the 9th inning, with everybody giving up a lot of base hits, but nobody could get across home plate.
Moises Sierra at the plate, and now the Marlins down to their final strike. You can just feel the tension mounting. Here's an 0-2. And it is a ball. Hey, you come down to spring training, you don't worry about it. You know, you sit back, get your favorite beverage, hot dog, peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack. Half these people think we're in the 4th inning.
Or not.
Here's a 1-2. Here's a 1-2 again. Ground ball to second. Valera is there, and the Cardinals win it. 9-2 the final. St. Louis over Miami.
No substitute for winning the baseball game. Cardinals are getting everybody in action, letting everybody play, but when you walk away with a victory, it is meaningful.
Cardinals win it 9-2. We'll wrap it up when we come back.